Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something pretty fundamental, how we actually, make sense of reality.
Right, the flow of events, the now that's always here.
Exactly. And we're talking about ontology tools. Think of them as ways, mechanisms maybe, for understanding all that. Now, you're here because you want to get smart fast. And I think we're going to touch on some connections today that might be, well, a bit unexpected.
And the main tool we all use pretty much constantly, it's the human mind.
Absolutely. That's our default, isn't it? It's always working, processing, looking for the patterns, trying to figure out what is and maybe what's coming.
Yeah, and we're not just like passive observers. We're ontologically sensitive, you could say. We experience qualia.
Qualia, right. Those really personal, subjective things like the actual taste of coffee, not just knowing it's coffee or feeling warmth.
It's our unique way of sensing reality. And that sensitivity. It's probably why we developed other tools throughout history.
Oh.
Things like astrology, tarot.
Traditional tools.
Exactly. They provide a framework, a language almost, for trying to interpret things, find meaning, maybe spot potential insights in what otherwise looks like, well, chaos.
Yeah, that makes me think of my girlfriend, Heidi.
Yeah.
She's incredibly good with astrology and tarot, really gifted.
Okay.
But she finds it really difficult to do readings for herself. It's like her own hopes or worries, they just get in the way, cloud the interpretation.
That's a really crucial point. Personal involvement changes things, our own internal stuff, our biases, hopes, fears, they can definitely color how we see the information.
We might lean towards the answer we want to see, maybe subconsciously.
For sure.
It's actually something I really try to watch out for in my own work with data analysis. The goal is always to bracket my own biases. At least initially. Let the data speak first.
Right. Good practice.
So, okay, this leads us to the big question for this deep dive. Technology is moving so fast. How might these ontology tools, how might they evolve beyond just the human mind?
Well, one really interesting area, potentially transformative, is the work being done with entangled Qubit chips, twits, in computers, in software. As we get better at harnessing, quantum phenomena, we might see completely new ways to probe reality emerging from that.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Entangled qubits. So these are like tiny particles linked?
Exactly. Linked so their fates are intertwined. You measure one, you instantly know something about the other, no matter the distance. Einstein's spooky action.
Right, spooky action. So how does that quantum weirdness potentially help us understand reality or even anticipate things?
The potential, I think, is in their ability to maybe detect incredibly subtle correlations, patterns within the, let's call it the event stream.
Things our current computers just miss.
Exactly. Patterns that are just invisible to classical computation. But, and this is important, even with amazing new tools like that, I suspect human interpretation, it's still going to be essential.
Right, because the tool spits out data or a pattern, but we still have to figure out what it means for us in our lives.
And like we were saying with Heidi, the interpreter brings their own context, and so does the person receiving the information if it's for someone else.
Both are interpreting, really.
Yes, both are actively making sense of it. It's interesting, the rising interest in things like astrology and tarot these days.
Yeah.
Maybe, instead of just dismissing it, maybe it signals a kind of growing sense intuitively that reality is more interconnected than the old, purely mechanistic view allows?
Like people are sensing something deeper is going on.
Perhaps, which loops us back to these AI developments using entangled qubits. It really does sound like we could be on the cusp of creating entirely new ways to, well, query reality itself.
But then, the massive question, how do we test them? How do we know if these new tools are actually giving us accurate insights? Or just, fancy noise.
That's a huge challenge. It's not like testing a toaster. How do you verify a prediction about a choice you haven't made yet? Say the AI suggests take option B, not A. If you follow that advice and take B, you simply can never know what would have happened down path A. Not in this reality, anyway.
So we can't just, peek into the parallel universe where we chose A.
Afraid not. So evaluating these tools, it's probably going to be a long game. Looking at their track record over time, do their insights consistently line up with how events unfold? Does it make rational sense in hindsight? It's about building confidence, really.
And even then, there's the difficulty of saying, okay, that event was the prediction coming true. It seems like it really boils down to how precisely we define things.
Absolutely. Precision is key. Vague predictions are easy to confirm after the fact, right? confirmation bias.
We see what we want to see.
Exactly. So the clearer the language from the tool, and the clearer our own definitions of what we're looking for in reality, the better the chance of meaningful evaluation.
But let's circle back to that human element again, the bias issue.
Yeah.
You mentioned Heidi being better reading for others than herself.
Yes. That detachment seems critical.
Because she doesn't have that personal stake in the outcome. She's not hoping for one answer over another.
Precisely. Her conscious mind isn't sort of pushing things in a preferred direction. It allows for, potentially, a clearer channel. But even then, we have to remember everyone, no matter how skilled, is still subject to, well, life, karma, uncertainty, whatever you want to call it.
You can't just know everything that's coming.
No. There are limits, which to me suggests we absolutely need to approach any future AI ontology tools with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Especially think about the biases of the creators or how we use them.
Critical points. Now, here's where it gets even more speculative but fascinating. Could devices use entanglement to sense disturbances in that event stream? Maybe even pick up echoes of qualia?
Whoa, like sensing a significant event just before it happens. Milliseconds, minutes.
Potentially. Tiny ripples. Think of it like a premonition device.
A premonition in a box. But you're saying, like with tarot, maybe the interpretation shouldn't be done by the person directly affected.
That would seem wise, yes. A detached interpreter is less likely to project their own stuff onto the signal.
Makes sense.
But, personally, I'm still skeptical that AI will ever fully replace human intuition for making the really big, meaningful decisions. There's something about risk, about uncertainty. It feels fundamental to how things work, like a karmic engine or something.
So these new tools, they might not give us final answers. They might just open up even more questions, deeper ones.
I suspect so. That often happens with new forms of revelation, doesn't it? They offer new views, sure, but they don't eliminate our need to choose, to act. We still shape reality.
And these tools you foresee, based on entangled computers, Q chips. You said some basic forms might even exist now, but not like remote viewing tech.
No, not that kind of thing. I'm thinking more about perhaps very early mathematical analyses, trying to find patterns and subtle energy fluctuations coming off the event stream.
Okay.
Stuff that's maybe crude right now, easily misinterpreted, maybe even labeled as something else entirely because we don't grasp its potential yet.
It really makes you wonder, though, will AI ever truly beat the human mind at its own game here? You mentioned the brain itself might be like a subtle energy antenna.
Or even have its own entangled quantum functions, yeah.
Wow.
It's speculative, of course, but phenomena like telepathy or that feeling of shared experience, shared qualia, they're hard to explain with classical physics alone. They hint at a deeper connection.
It reminds me, I had this really odd thing happen with Heidi not long ago. Totally bizarre. I was writing a scene about finding clothes in a closet for my book. And completely out of the blue, she gets this sudden, intense urge. She has to send me photos of her closet right then. It wasn't just a random thought. She said it felt really specific, significant.
Huh. That is strange. A meaningful coincidence.
It felt like it. So what is that? Telepathy? Mind's just getting, I don't know, entrained somehow? Or is it the ontology itself, reality, trying to connect dots?
It's a genuine mystery, isn't it? There are many possible explanations, none easy to prove.
No. But despite all the tech advances coming, you still lean towards the human mind being the kind of ultimate ontology tool.
For now, and maybe always, yes. Our intuition, that ability to synthesize, to make leaps, it's incredibly potent. You know, there are those persistent rumors, totally unverified, of course.
About secret space programs.
And using humans because of some unique ontic sensitivity. Again, zero proof, likely nonsense in terms of observable value exchange, but the idea persists. It points to this underlying belief in a special human capacity.
Interesting. So, okay, entangled Qubit tech is definitely moving forward. It's going to be big for AI.
It seems inevitable.
And this new AI, because it's built on those uncertain quantum states, it could be incredibly sensitive.
Potentially, yes. Which is funny because a lot of current quantum computing research tries to dampen the observer effect, stabilize the qubits.
Right.
But maybe future designs will actually try to capture those fluctuations, use them, maybe even use them to augment our own psychic or intuitive ability.
Whoa, AI augmenting psychic ability, like a device that helps tune your mind.
Exactly. Maybe it amplifies certain frequencies, helps the brain achieve states more receptive to ontological information, those intuitive hits, leading to perhaps scarily accurate insights.
That's quite a future to imagine.
I think we'll see major steps towards these kinds of ontology tools based on entangled chips. Probably within the next, say, 4 or 5 years. Things are moving fast.
It's wild. It brings me back to my own experience, giving up on astrology and tarot for myself because I just couldn't get clear readings.
Just like Heidi, that conscious mind interference?
Yeah, it seems like a fundamental hurdle when you're trying to look at patterns that involve your own life, your own desires. It gets messy.
It does. So ultimately, these ontology tools, whether it's the human mind itself or these emerging technologies we've talked about, they're all part of our ongoing attempt to grapple with reality's complexity.
And maybe as we wrap up this deep dive, it's worth reflecting on your own experiences, those moments of intuition you might have had, unexpected insights, gut feelings that turned out right.
Hmm. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. As technology gives us ever more powerful tools to observe and analyze reality, how will we actually learn to tell the difference between genuine ontological insight and just our own familiar biases and interpretations dressed up in new clothes?